Well, let's see here. I might not be Morgan Freeman, but this is... Classic Gamer Reviews.
Out of Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, Nintendo undoubtedly has the most mascots who represent it. Standing high on that list, you have mascots such as Mario, Link, and Samus. But on the other hand, Nintendo has a fair amount of mascots that aren't as really well known, and for the most part, don't see the love and attention they deserve. One of those is Olimar, who made his debut in Pikmin for the GameCube in 2001. While the series is considered a financial success, it's definitely one of the less appreciated Nintendo games, receiving at this time a total of only 3 games in the franchise. Among those 3 games is Min 2. Oh wait, no, Pikmin 2. Stupid bug, you messed me up! Pikmin 2 takes place just after the events in the first game, which is why it's called Pikmin 2, because that's how numbers work! As you return home, your boss informs you that the company you work for is in debt. Upon discovering that the planet Olimar is trapped on is filled with such precious things like bottle caps, he comes up with the idea of sending you and your company's latest member, Louie, back to Earth to repay the debt. Back to the planet that you almost died on. That's about as deep as the story gets, as you spend the whole game trying to repay your debt, and once that's done, just become filthy rich. Helping you do so are the planet's inhabitants, called Pikmin, who immediately take a liking to you. So much so that they will do whatever you ask. Literally, they have no objections against bashing their skulls in to break down barriers for you, or simply walking to their death if you tell them to. When you start to think about it, this is definitely one of Nintendo's most messed up games. I mean, you do some sick shit in this game. At one point, you can even force babies to carry their dead mother away. How's that for mild violence? So while the first Pikmin had you using the Pikmin to help you get off the planet and not suffocate, the second one just has you using them as slaves to get your company out of debt. Alright Pikmin, listen. My boss has run out of money, and we're probably gonna lose the business. This has now become my problem, and as such, has now become all of your guys' problems, alright? So you're gonna work for me now, alright? So get me some fucking treasure! The majority of the gameplay revolves around throwing and commanding these creatures, and you'll come across Pikmin both old and new to the franchise, with some being different colors and having certain perks. This time around though, instead of just playing as one person, you can now play as 2, changing about who you control at will, but playing as either Olimar or Louie, you can't do much. Well, you can punch tadpoles, so that's something I guess. So, aside from vicious animal beating, okay, we get it, your only means of effective attacking, exploring, and getting treasure back to your ship will be through your Pikmin. When you're using the Pikmin to attack, you may notice that many of the game's enemies can be killed by simply overwhelming them, but there's a few instances in which this isn't the best approach. While there's a few enemies that you just want to avoid altogether, go away! Come on, Frank, we're gonna get you out of here. The more dangerous enemies will have to be dealt with immediately, or you risk losing all your Pikmin. An example of one of these are the elemental-based enemies, which are best taken out using specific Pikmin. For example, using electric-resistant Pikmin. While you can use left or right on the D-pad to throw certain colored Pikmin over others, this becomes a problem when you're in some of the game's cramped underground levels. And dismissing the Pikmin isn't always a good alternative either, as dismissed Pikmin will attack anything nearby when passive, even at the risk of them dying. And even if you can get the Pikmin dismissed safely and into separate groups, they sometimes are so close together that your whistle calls Pikmin that you don't even want. You can always free up the area by switching to another character to split the group up when in tight spaces, but I feel like a lot of issues could have been solved by giving the player the option to choose what specific colored Pikmin they want to call out to. Thankfully, this wasn't too often a problem, as 9 times out of 10 throwing Pikmin strategically onto enemies was both fun and rewarding. But when this problem did rear its ugly head, it was still enough to bother me, making some of my Pikmin murder sprees feel justified. I'm gonna watch you fuckers drown! However, I wasn't able to take out all my frustration on the Pikmin, as this is one of the very few Nintendo games to really punish you for doing bad. Certain Pikmin, specifically the white and purple ones, can only be made in certain places. And so whenever I would lose one of those types of Pikmin, it actually felt like a great loss. This would usually mean I couldn't lift a certain object, and so I would often find myself backtracking to different areas just to get these Pikmin back. And for Nintendo, where punishments are usually dealt out in a small slap to the wrist, having to backtrack to find a place to get these Pikmin back felt more like a punch to the face. And you can trust me on that, because I am familiar what a punch to the face looks like. Tell me to eat grass, will you, Mr. President? Well, how about you eat my fucking face? But I never really found the joy of getting these Pikmin back mundane or annoying, because the added difficulty is welcome in a Nintendo game. But the game's backtracking is also complemented by its level design. Until you repay your debt, the game gives you 3 places to explore: the Valley of Repose, Perplexing Pool, and Awakening Wood. Because I guess Morning Wood just didn't make the cut.
Alright, Pikmin, you got a big day of exploring ahead of you, so get exploring!
All of the game's areas are beautifully detailed though, and littered with interesting creatures, foliage, and relics of past human life. Throughout the areas, you'll come across caves which act sort of as the game's levels, and while these can often be visited in about any order you want, it also means you'll most likely experience sporadic difficulty changes, with some of the bosses absolutely wrecking you. Or as the cool kids say nowadays, #wrecked. My only complaint with the environment is that with the addition of switching characters this time around, I expected to see a few more puzzles in the game. And this is a game that I believe would have benefited from a few more puzzles, but as it is, there's only a small amount of them used, with none of them really being that difficult for any of the right reasons. The scarce amount of puzzles in the game were mainly used for the above ground sections, with the cave levels being more action oriented. But with a large chunk of the action taking place in the caves and a lack of puzzles above ground, it's easy to see why someone might think the above ground sections aren't fun. Thankfully though, that's not true. And this is a good thing, because when you find yourself low on the common red, yellow, or blue Pikmin, and trust me, you will, the routine of stripping the land to make more Pikmin becomes rather addicting. Now, I feel like this could be the point where I can make a Native American joke, what with the Pikmin being red, my first name being the same as Christopher Columbus's, and me as the player stripping the land of its resources and treating the locals unfairly. But here at Classic Gamer Reviews, we pride ourselves on less offensive humor. So here's a pot leaf you find in the game. When you finally do repay the debt and beat the game, there's a decent amount left to do. The game's 4th area opens up, you can play the game's challenge or versus mode, you can try to find all the treasures, or even kill some of the bosses you may have skipped. As for the versus mode, I wasn't able to capture any gameplay outside of the main menu footage, as I'm an outcast in both my family and my community. But, having played it before with a friend, I can easily say its capture the flag style-like gameplay is simple, yet a blast to play. The game's challenge mode has you going through a number of caves with a limited amount of Pikmin and time, and it has the added benefit of being able to be played with a friend. Overall though, it wasn't really my cup of tea, but I can see people who enjoy speedrunning games having a good enough time with it. Overall though, I highly recommend Pikmin 2, as it's not only a great game, but a unique one that offers up solid gameplay, great environments, and that Nintendo charm that we've all come to love. You can pick it up on either the GameCube or for the Wii as part of the new Play Control series. Or you could just borrow it from your friend like I did. Thank you, Davis. Hey, I'm Chris Jewett, and if you enjoyed this review, then go ahead and click that like button and leave a comment. And if you'd want to see more, then I guess the best thing to do would be to subscribe. And if you liked the opening intro, then why don't you check out Freddy Sal's channel? And if you liked the opening voice, then check out Jason Stevens' website in the description below. You can also click here to listen to my supple voice narrate an episode of How Will Nathaniel Rage? And as always, you can show your support by liking us on Facebook or becoming a donator on Patreon today. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time. Or as the cool kids say nowadays, #wrecked.